Well, good morning and thank you for joining us for today's edition of Sports Check with me, Richard Munga, as we get to have sporting conversations right here on KBC. Now, Transforming Youngsters of Africa, a sports organization, actually one of the oldest sports organizations in Kenya. Before we had, even the private ones coming up, even the public ones which are being, pushed by the ministry and the government as well. Before that, we had Transforming Youngsters of Africa, and that will be a first conversation today where we're joined by the founder of Transforming Youngsters Africa, Francis Gichuki, as well as one of the board members, Peter Wechuli. Thank you very much, guys, for giving us the time right here on Sports Check.
Thank you so much.
So I believe basically the most important thing at this point is for you, as being the founder, to just tell us how you came about, starting Transforming Youngsters of Africa, which was back in 2001. That's a long time.
Quite a long time. Quite a long time. And thank you so much, because it's an opportunity for KBC to have journeyed with us in this process. And coming back and being part of this is really encouraging for us. And as you rightly put it, everything has an idea. And an idea behind what we do is informed by the aspirations of the founder. And my passion is really about young people, empowering young people to make choices, empowering young people to design their pathway to their dreams. So this was all the way back there, and because I grew up also in the same community that in Kitale, as in Cherangani, and it was a process for me to be who I am today. And I was remembering the journey, and I felt, how can I also give back to the young people in the community to be able to benefit from the power of sport, and the power of sport for good. So in 1997, 98, 1999, all this way, I was running Gichuki Cup. And the Gichuki Cup was a tournament that was played every April, every Easter holiday. Very fantastic. Young people used to join the fields, old women would come. So we had all our sort of type of activities just to be able to mobilize and create enthusiasm in our community. And after that, the feeling was then, so what after the tournaments? What can happen? And that's how TYSA was born.
Okay.
And Munga, it was born as a self-help group. And as a self-help group that supported the local community. And after that also we felt, wow, it's a self-help group, so how can we make it grow? Then 2 years later it became a CBO, a community-based organization, but all believing in the power of sport. Because that power of sport where you were able as a young person to get from home and just join your colleagues, what you call the team up.
Exactly.
And you know how it feels when we're growing up and you feel like, can I move from home and go and join my colleagues? Yeah. And we used to play the plastic football, ball, we call it lifundo in the local community.
Lifundo.
Lifundo.
Okay.
So it's as we, make, and we had to play, and you sometimes walk for 10 kilometers, because you want to go and play with your colleagues.
Yeah.
So that was really the dream and the aspirations. So then we started feeling, can we make it in the county? And that was how it became a CBO. And later, 12 years, I think 2012, there was a desire really to make it grow into a national NGO. So in 2012, that process began to make it an NGO, and we began by calling the Trans Nzoia Youth Sports Association. That's the original name, Trans Nzoia Youth Sports Association. And in 2012, young people who we started with, already almost 14 years, 15 years, they started questioning the limitations of Trans Nzoia Youth Sports Association. They started asking, are we leaving out others? And of course, when young people started asking those questions, as an adult, as a father, you start believing that there's a change happening in the life of young people.
Yeah.
So they question why we call it Trans Nzoia Youth Sports Association, not anything else. And therefore, they started asking for reforms in the name of the organization. And I was very happy and very excited, and I really knew that we are in the right direction when young people ask for reforms in an organization that was founded by someone.
then you're achieving something.
Then you're achieving something. Remember the desire for empowerment of young people, that they can be able to design their own pathways? Yes, they started designing their own pathway.
Okay.
So I told them, good guys, that's nice, I love it. How can I help you? And they asked Gichuki, how can we, reform it and what, blah, blah. Then we said, I have branded TYSA for a long time. A name has a brand.
Yeah.
So when you say TYSA, it's a really strong name that I wanted to keep. I told them, do anything else, but keep the acronyms, TYSA. And so they started, we had almost 2 years of discussions. And we had created a forum called the Children Voices Festival. And in that Children Voices Festival, that their voices started coming up. And my daughter, by then, because she was born when TYSA was born. And she was also part of this conversation. And they came up with a very good name, that group, the young girls and boys. They said, we'll call it Transforming Young Stars of Africa. And the bottom line was, everyone is a star. Everyone has a star. And
it does indeed feel like, everyone was involved, when it's Trans Nzoia Youth Sports Association. It's a good name, considering that's where it was started. But then again, everyone also, surrounding areas between, around Trans Nzoia, everyone would feel part of it if it's called, something more, like as you said, transforming young stars
of Africa. And they were saying, we want to go beyond the boundaries of Trans Nzoia. We want to be bigger than Trans Nzoia. And that's how they talked about Africa. I don't know what will happen later. They might talk about the world. But that is another discussion for another day. When they'll be here talking about that journey on their own. But that's how really the spirit of the formation of Transform Young Stars has been over the last 20 years, and those segments of changes that have been there
for the long time.
Yes.
And for Wechuli, how did you get involved in this, coming into TYSA?
First and foremost, I want to thank KBC for giving us a platform to come and share our story. I got to know TYSA 13 years ago as a young professional, and became friends to TYSA since then. One, as a mentee, as Mr. Gichuki has ably put it, it's about mentorship. It's about giving young people a platform to be. So I came in as a mentee in 2010, and through that mentorship and coaching, rose through the ranks to become a mentor. That was in 2015. And through my journey with young people, through the coaching of Mr. Gichuki, having rose through the ranks, and now I'm proud to sit in as a young board chairman to TYSA. Currently, I head a board of 7, and I'm proud of the 7 young people that are working under me. Of course, a lot of them, their ages ranging between 22 to 30 years. So I can ably say that this is probably one of the youngest boards in Africa, or even in the world. So I pride in that, because each of these 7 people have a story, like mine. We have those who came in 7 years of age, 10 years of age, 5 years of age, and have gone through the system. And then now they have an opportunity to serve as a board or as board members. So basically, what we agitate for as an organization is mentorship and journeying with young people, but also giving them a platform to be what they want to be. So basically, that's what I do. We are basically looking to make this organization now move to the next level. I know Mr. Gichuki is going to talk about passing on the baton. It comes as a challenge. But that's a challenge that this board is willing to embrace. And that's why I have ably sat here, so that I can share the story about the next steps. Thank you so much.
It is actually commendable, the fact that you don't only teach these young people about, leadership, all the life skills. It's not only about teaching them, that's theory. The fact that you also include the young people in the board, it's more of a practical, really, so that they can have a feel of what to expect. And I'm guessing they're the same guys that you, as the founder, and you, one of the people involved in the board. I'm sure that is, you obviously want someone else, someone younger, obviously, to take over later on, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is one of the youngest boards. I'm possibly just slightly above 35. And I shared with you the range of age. So what we do basically is mentorship, and we basically are sitting in also to mentor the others who are coming up. We have still a young crop of young leaders that are not sitting on the board yet, but we are mentoring them, we are coaching them, and we usually say at TYSA that we incubate and release to the world to go out there and flourish. So this is basically what we are doing, and we have seen through our pool of young people, we have young people who are now sitting in the US to go out there and flourish. So this is basically what we are doing, and we have seen through our pool of young people, we have young people who are now sitting in the US, others in Spain and those countries, and really exercising their core mandate around leadership. They're excelling in their studies. They also have very strong backgrounds around sporting. Remember sports is our anchor. So a lot of these people have also gotten scholarships to not only go and do sports, but also to learn. So basically ours is about nurturing and giving young people a platform to be. So that's our core mandate.
Now, Francis Gichuki, as the founder of TYSA, because back then, that was back in 2001. I do understand that back then also we had sports in the counties, especially football. It was flourishing back then. But what exactly is it that advised you to actually start this sports organization in Trans-Nzoia? Because back then it was not a very popular concept, was it? And the notable ones that have been there over the time, the longest one, let's say, is TYSA, really. So what informed the decision to not do that here in Nairobi and then take it elsewhere, like in Trans-Nzoia? Was it the talent that you could see growing up there, or was it just a better place to start since you were trying to give back to the community that you were raised up in?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Munga, because back then, sports was generally about play and go home. Have fun, go home. So that was the spirit, and still is to some extent. And growing up in the on the slopes of the Cherangani Hills, and appreciating the fact that the rural setup really had an impact on how I reflect and think through. Given that the backyard where I was really was a tough backyard, a tough backyard. And when you say tough, it's tough backyard. And the only consolation, the only happiness I could get at that moment was through sports. And then of course when you get out of home and you want to go into the community and have fun, sport was really the most powerful part of it. And therefore the fact that when I went to school in Sinyereri Primary, and then I went to St. Joseph's High School, and then later went to Kenyatta University. And all that process of my journey to education was very, very related to two things. One, to sports. Second, to leadership. Because I offered a lot of my leadership to the youth groups in the church. I grew up in those circles of the church youth groups, and those were forums where I really developed my leadership part. And of course in the same youth groups that we also had the sporting, because we used to organize the church football tournaments, and those were also very influential. So in checking that process all the way, and part of most of my education was really sponsored my education was really sponsored. And we were not able completely in our family level to take me through the education in high school.
Yeah.
Actually, I was sponsored by a priest, Father Okumu. And Father Okumu now is in the US. And he held my hand through.
A big thank you to Father Okumu.
Yes, yes, it's really great. And this priest, you know, he took me and said, Gichuki, I'll walk with you. You know, when I came to university, remember those are also the days we had to pay, you know, to survive.
Yeah.
And Sister Nula, our Loreto sister, also came to my aid. So I'm a product of people who are holding my hands. You know, I walked on their shoulders. And so when you talk about the give back ideology and the give back of how can I manage and support people from the rural areas, specifically because that's sometimes they are forgotten. The processes are not really there to support their journey. So TYSA formation was one to give them an opportunity, from the rural setup, to be able to expose themselves beyond their villages. Because I got a chance to go all the way to the university through the hands of other people.
Yeah.
Then I said, this organization would be useful. So I embraced sport to bring them together. Second, I embraced the leadership part of it. Thirdly, education. And if we talk about education for life, it's not just to know to read and write. That's not sufficient.
Yeah.
You know, the world does not require only that alone. It requires the education for life. And education for life means sports helps us to go through that. And that's where we call sports for development. Now you can get where the link is.
Yeah.
For development means that I'm using sport to be able to address my own personal development. And it could be decision making. It could be communication. It could be about how to address communal issues, conflict and peace issues. So that's what sports for development really does. And for me, it was critical to ensure that young people are playing, at the same time, they are looking at their personal development, and then later, their community transformation. And 20 years later, now we can talk about community transformation in a short while. And through that line, I did play a bigger role in shaping that conversation of how then can sport be utilized to transform the lives of individuals and the community. And there are very many examples that we supported and sort of had a conversation. Most of us are aware of schools and, you know, that really, you know, developed sports in this country. And one of them is Wiyeta Girls.
Yeah.
Have many years of, you know, champions, East and Central. And in 2001, that's where we were with the deputy by then, Mr. Awo, who has since moved to the US.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we started with the team, slowly. And Caroline Wanjala, who is now a FIFA referee here in this country, is actually my product, you know. And when we met with the Caro, actually she was playing in one of the tournaments where she was the only lady in a boys team. And I spotted this little girl and said, wow, what a confidence, you know, what a power she has. And after that, you know, she could not be able to proceed to high school. And I said, what? I took her and actually I drove to their home and said, just get into my car.
Yeah.
Let's go to school. And that's what happens in the whole process of the passion you have for changing the lives of young people. So sport is a critical element. And that's why you asked, why not in Nairobi or anywhere else in the country? Yeah. Because one, I come from that region, and you have to begin from somewhere. And later in this conversation, we'll be discussing how we have then be able to reach out globally.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the point of starting and then moving on to the rest of the world. And later, of course, as we discuss this, we realize how powerful a seed, when planted in the right place, germinates and it flourishes. So maybe Trans Nzoia was the place to plant the seed.
Okay. That keep quite inspiring. Honestly, it has done. Yeah, anyway, now over to Peter Wechuli now. What are some of the programs, you know, that you've come up with so far for, you know, engagement with the youth?
Thank you, Mr. Munga, for that. I just wanted to come in briefly before I attend to that, around our rural communities and why Trans Nzoia. The reality on the ground is that within the rural setup, there is a lot of condemnation. That if I'm not good in my academics, I'm a nobody.
Yeah.
If I'm not excelling in my academics, then I have nowhere to go. Either I surrender to drugs or get married if I'm a young lady. TYSA has over the years sought to negate that by showing to the world that it's not only academics, that young people can excel in other spheres, that young people can nurture their talents and excel and get a livelihoods out of that, that young people can exercise their football skills and develop a career out of that, even when the society has degraded them to nobodies. So what TYSA is currently doing is providing a platform, a safe space for young people to come in and exercise their other abilities outside academics. And that's something that we hold close to our hearts. It's something that has opened young people's mindset. It's something that is quickly getting into the mindset of our communities, that it is not only in academics that one can flourish. And as Mr. Gichuki has ably pointed out, we have young people who had otherwise been condemned as nobodies within our target communities who are now flourishing.
Yeah.
So that's a critical engagement when we are looking at our target communities and more so in the rural areas. In terms of programming, over the years, TYSA has engaged stakeholders to support programs that are geared towards supporting young people excel in their abilities. Of course, the biggest song for TYSA is go to school and achieve an education. So the entry point for programming have been schools. Getting into schools and engaging with school managements around sporting activities, encouraging schools and school managements to embrace talents and gifts as a way of nurturing young people. Of course, we have had structured programs that are donor funded, programs like Football for Peace, Football for Water, engagements with with donors who are also geared towards peace building. Trans Nzoia is a cosmopolitan zone. Yeah. And there have been a lot of disruptions politically. So part of what we have been doing is to preach peace, and we have run programs that are geared towards that. We have also had programs around building of confidence, making sure that our young people are also informed around technology. And I know Mr. Gichuki will talk a little about that, infrastructure and all that. So basically we have run programs that are not only geared towards development, but also looking at young people and nurturing them to be what they would wish to be. Okay. Yeah.
Wow. Now, Francis Gichuki, back to you as the founder. I know you guys have, you've gone through a lot, to get to the point where you are at the moment. You've had your fair share of troubles, you've had your fair share of achievements, milestones. But before we talk about the achievements, we do understand how hard it is for sports here in Kenya. So many aspects, even lack of scouting and whatnot, lack of funding and all that. But what has been your greatest challenge as the founder of TYSA? What has been your greatest challenge?
Thank you, Munga. This might sound a bit not conventional, but I think for me the real challenge is the lack of awareness on the real importance of investing in young people. Because once that awareness is created and the desire is also generated to invest in young people, then quite a bit of the challenges that we are seeing will be out. So the question for me has not been about the money, the resources, and what have you. That is not a conversation I always go into, because it is sometimes artificial. But if you are looking at what is it that is internal, what is it that is really the issue is, that none of us sometimes, or a few of us sometimes, really genuinely address the concerns of the young people, and therefore we do not invest genuinely on them. It's very cosmetic. And secondly, we take young people as an event. We won't just do one off and go away. But young people program and processes and development is a journey, and nobody wants to go that journey, including the donors, including the development partners. Yeah. Sometimes we feel it's not our mandate as much to journey with them. And often than not, if you go for a journey that you don't conclude, then it was not worth starting it. And that's why more often than not, nobody wants to really engage meaningfully with the young people and investing in them. And even more importantly, trusting in these young people and believing in them. It is not easy. That's the biggest challenge. If the resources are there, Munga, and we have it. The question is, do we believe, do we trust, do we invest, and do we journey with the young people? That is where the issue of young people development is hinged.
Is it about transforming, changing perspectives, and the perception around it? Because, as you said, if the resources are there, people are just not sure if it's a worthy cause. So, exactly. Is it the fact that we're not willing? Is it that now we have to start changing perceptions? What is it exactly?
And that's the last 20 years what I've been working on, and I still continue working in that sector until where the young people development is not just an option you take or not, but it's a commitment you make. It is like parenting.
Exactly.
And that's the last 20 years what I've been working on, and I still continue working in that sector until where the young people development is not just an option you take or not, but it's a commitment you make. It is like parenting. It's like parenting. When you're parenting, you don't stop. So when you have programs out there for young people and they are not consistent, they are not persistent, they are not predictable, then the program, the development of the young people becomes very haphazard. And it's very dangerous, Munga, when you have reached the middle of a program and then you let it go. Yeah. Because the young people, you work with them, at a certain point you let them off. It's even more worse. You'd rather have not begun.
Because you gave them hope in the first place.
You gave them hope in life and you never achieved that. And that's why in TYSA, when we were sort of began and thinking is, we don't give false hope. And that's why in our assessment of the young people as we develop in sport, we actually share and say, you're a good referee, but you're not a good player. You're a good manager, but you're not a good referee. You're a good person who can do first aid on the pitch,
but you're not a good player.
But you're a good player. These are realities that we share with the young people without, mincing words, and then you take them through that journey. So each of them comes to appreciate, wow, I think I love what TYSA or what Gichuki told me at a certain point. So being open and genuine to young people and giving the pathway. Remember I started by saying we shape the pathways. These are the dreams now. And as an organization, we navigate through that with them and testing it out. And we give them different exposures that then makes them realize, wow, I think I'm good in this. I think the other one I was not. Because there's also what we call the sports for fun, sports for inclusion, sports for all that. That's part of the sports for development that allows them to do this. So the challenge around the question of how do we ensure that young people are genuinely engaged and none of them then lives in illusion. Because sometimes sports can give you illusion and you think you are the best. But what happens when you are not the best? You go back to your old habits. which were never addressed during the process of your development. It might be too late for you. And that's why sometimes players will feel, no, I was used, you know, they just used me and dumped me. So, TYSA, we really take care of your holistic, and we believe in the positive youth development. Positive means we look for your best strength and work towards it. Sometimes in TYSA we don't talk about problems and challenges. We look at the strength. Spend your mind talking about positivity. Not too much of
negativity
and problems. The world has enough problems to talk about.
But why do you draw the line between, you know, avoiding talking about negativity, you know, and acknowledging reality?
Exactly, but in a positive way. You know, that's the other side of it.
Okay. Hey, Wechuli, first of all, I do understand why you got on board. I mean, he is quite convincing, really. I already want to be a member of TYSA. But he said that it's a journey. You know, you start with the children, you never leave them, you know, at every step. But then again, what happens when they're all grown up? Is it that are there sports, let's say scholarships that you guys, you know, you have secured with your donors and, you know, stuff like that?
Yeah, thank you, Munga, for that. There's something he did say, that we do not give empty promises. For us at TYSA, it's about incubation, young people leadership incubation. We run a youth leadership program that basically aims to you know, to incubate young people in leadership. So we have trainings around leadership. We have trainings around financial management. We have trainings around, you know, peace and, you know, bits around personality, you know, growth and all that. And, you know, the thinking is that young people are supposed to find their own pathways from these kinds of engagement. So what we do is basically to incubate. And once we feel that, you know, a young person is ready to take off, we give them wings to fly. We do not prescribe and say, after this you're going to get a scholarship. We believe that in what we do, we prepare these young people to be attractive to whoever is looking at them. And that has really worked well, because a lot of the young people we have worked with have excelled out of their own effort, out of their own ability to be themselves, and others are able to look at them as attractive. So yes, they have attracted scholarships, they have attracted you know, colleges for sponsorship, they have attracted employers, and we have quite a number who are doing very well. So ours is basically to provide what we call strategic linkages within our networks, and expose these young people to field visits, to like-minded organizations, encourage them to take up volunteerism, encourage them to take up internships as part of them themselves building their portfolio, so that then they can get attractive to others. And that we have done very well. So apart from the Leadership Academy, us mainly is just production or provision of strategic linkages to people that we think are able to support. But also that comes with a challenge. Of course, Mr. Gichuki would not look at it as a challenge, but as a board chair, the biggest challenge is where the community feels that we haven't done enough to, you know, to create a very straight pathway for these young people. That the missing link is that we say now, can we start a business for you because now you're here, or can we get you a scholarship for this? So that forms a perception from the community that we haven't done enough, which is, I mean, perceptions are there, but for us, once we have done our small bit around building the person, building the individual, and preparing them to take off, we release them to the world.
Yeah.
And that we have done very well over the years. Yeah.
Okay. And now, for example, now you did mention one of the alumni of the organization. So maybe who are some of the people that you can say, you know, you've had a hand in, let's say, paving the path for, you know, up until this point, be it sportsmen, be it, you know.
Yeah, there would be quite a number, Munga, but then we could also look at without any order of priority.
Exactly.
Because each of them, I always say, each person is very unique.
Exactly.
And that's one thing we appreciate in the youth development. When in this sector of youth development, you have to appreciate that everyone is unique and you don't have mass, you know, condemnation or mass appraisals.
Of course.
No, you have to look at every young person, spend time with them, see how they can become better, and you provide those kind of support mechanisms for them. And of course, sport disciplines the mind. You know, that's the most important part. It disciplines the mind. And once it disciplines the mind, then the body, of course, responds with the reality that then I'm fit, I'm healthy, you know, then that supports your growth. So mind is critical in terms of how then each of them grow. And you know, over the weekend we were just in Kitale there at TYSA, you know, stadium. And one of the young man who we started with, and he was playing barefooted, he struggled with his way life, and he used to come and sometimes he meet Gichuki and tells Gichuki, I've been chased out of school, I don't know what to do, and I just tell him, go and tell the principal you have been sent by Mr. Gichuki. That meant a lot for him.
It does mean a lot.
It means a lot, because he actually then completed school. Now he's a pastor. He was the one praying for us over the weekend, and he gave his testimony. And he said, you know, I am who I am because somebody cared.
Exactly.
And that person who cared is not far away. He's a person we're celebrating today. You know, Tony, who is also in the US, Tony was the immediate former CEO when I left. He's the one I mentored before I left, and he's now in the US. And he's married. He moved on there. He's now studying. He's doing his master's. At the same time, he's also offering his services there. And very, very happy young man who now, you know, has a lot of, you know, growth, and is supporting other young people in the US also. So they have formed a link of the former alumni of TYSA in the US, and now they are talking to each other.
Yeah. You
know, trying to see how they can support you know, the process. We have 4, almost 5. One is doing his doctorate now at the age of 32, 33. He's doing doctorate. So these are guys who out there. I mentioned Carol, who is now a referee. Yeah, the current CEO of TYSA, Carol Ndalila, you know, at Form 1 or Form 2, she had dropped out. And you know, when we met in the program, she could not even speak in front of anyone. But today she is the CEO of an organization that she really cherished, because it really brought her all the way in the journey. You know, when I look at Ojilo Francis, Ojilo is a senior instructor on sports. And you know, we look at his journey, you know, from the streets of Nairobi back to the village. And going back to school at the age of 25. I want to go back to school at the age of 25. Completed his Form 4. And now he's a very senior instructor. He's actually the most senior, most sports for development coach we have in TYSA, and even in the country. He's in that class of facilitation of the processes. And also, you know, globally, he's also very, you know, known on designing curriculums for sports for development. So these are some of the examples of people who have, and many others. Some are very great parents today, you know, and taking care of children in a way that's different than maybe we did, or in our parents did. So the impact of how the processes have been is really, you can't say it. And sometimes you meet, at one time I was flying out of the country, and when I was JKI, when I was just giving someone my passport to stamp, he held it back, and then I said, what?
What did I do?
What did I do? When you're at the airport and you're saying, oh, your passport is put aside, you get worried. But he allowed the other people, he served the other people first. Then after everyone had passed, then he told me, Gichuki, you might not remember me. You might not remember me. At the age of 12, I played football in your tournaments, in TYSA's tournaments. You gave me certification, and you can't remember. You carried me on your shoulders when we were crossing a river that had flooded. I could not remember. But this young man remembers, and he says, you inspired me. What you did was inspirational. And there are so many other seeds that have germinated across the globe that I might not be able to say. It's only them, when they're watching this program, will say, I think I know that bearded man. Because as they call me Mbuyu, most of the time they call me Mbuyu. And that's how we interact with them, the young generation. And they said, oh, it's Mbuyu. So that's easier, and that's how we have grown with them. So that process of really being closer to them and looking at their positivity, I'll go back there, and encourage each other that we don't look at challenges and problems of young people. Because even this nation and everywhere, people talk about challenges of young people, problems of young people. I think we are tired of hearing the problems. We want to hear the positive side of young people. Munga, everyone tells you about your problems every day. True. You'll also feel that you have a problem. And it becomes part of your problem. So I've always encouraged, can we talk about positivity? We have a lot of energy as young people. We have good things about this. I think let's change the world for the better for the young people. And let's look at what is it that they have that we can propel. And that is a process that goes back to the education, upbringing, family levels. I was challenging family the other day, as a parent, do you ever stop and say to your child, how can I help you? How can I help you? How many of us as parents use that terminology? My son, my daughter, my cousin, or my brother, how can I help you? We fear. We fear the unknown. What if they ask something that I cannot be able to help? That's always the fear we keep, and that's why we withhold. But I want to encourage each other. Let's just, we have something to help. As I said earlier, it's not about resources. It's about inspiring the will and the confidence in our young people. Tell him or her, my daughter, you can make it. You can do it. You have this positivity. I like this in you. Let's not talk about I don't like this in you. I like this in you. Spend time on that. You have this positivity. I like this in you. Let's not talk about I don't like this in you. I like this in you. Spend time on that as a parent. Keep on, I like this in you. And you see the transformation in your child. So this is what Munga is all about. So there are many out there that we might not reach out today, but through this program that KBC has provided, we are reaching to thousands and thousands of young people and even parents who can say, I think I believe in the process. Because if we don't trust the process of positive youth development for our young people, then the future is likely to be a bit limiting for us. So let's be happy. Let's be happy with our young people and what they are made up of. So these are all generations of young people globally. Because that's another line we have not discussed today. We're looking we are still within the country, but we have not moved out of what else TYSA has done globally. Out there. And because we have replicated a lot of our practices.
Wow. Actually, all I can say is I'm sitting here listening to him, and I can also see you paying attention to what he's saying, but I at the moment, Francis Gichuki, for those who don't know, is taking a step back. He said he's not retiring. That's not the right word to use. He's taking a step back, and that's why they had that tournament over the weekend. He'll be talking about that shortly. But Wechuli, I can't help but think, how difficult do you think it's going to be once he has, vacated? Because it's all about how he's explaining the vision.
Oh yes.
The people in the leadership positions who are going to stick around now. Is there enough belief in the vision that he set out to achieve to make sure that the organization remains consistent in inspiring and helping young kids? Because I would hate to be the guy taking over from him.
Yeah.
So how do you think the transition will be like without him in the picture?
Munga, it's a very challenging question. In fact,
I'm sorry,
I don't want to imagine that it's coming at this moment.
Yeah.
But before I answer that, there's something we are building at TYSA, the TYSA Wall of Fame. And you realize it just talked about like 5 or 6 individuals. I want to encourage all of us to visit TYSA and have a look at the TYSA Wall of Fame. The TYSA Wall of Fame is a portfolio of young people who have gone out and have presence wherever they are that have been incubated by TYSA. You'll be amazed at that list of over 100 plus. He has just talked about a few. So it's a portfolio we are building that is within the country, but also within the East African region and also globally. So you can imagine the numbers. In terms of the shoe that Gichuki is living, one of the encouraging driving force around this is that Gichuki has always told us, never try to fit into my shoes. Create your own pathway.
Of course, Gichuki would say something positive.
And that's something that we are trying to learn. But what I pride in is the mentorship and the coaching that we have received. Remember I said the board members who are sitting in right now all have a story.
Yeah.
We didn't come into the board yesterday. We have undergone a lot of panel beating from Gichuki himself and the team that also was with him. We feel that we are prepared enough to also give a new lease of life to TYSA outside Gichuki. Of course, we would seek to walk within his footprints, but we will also honestly work to also develop our own pathway and see TYSA growing beyond Gichuki. So it is a challenge that Gichuki is leaving us with, but it is also a challenge that we are willing to embrace. As a board that has walked the journey with Gichuki, most of us more than 10 years, we feel confident enough that we would propagate the vision that Gichuki has. There's a pledge that Gichuki and his family made that was so humbling when he was passing on the baton, that he would wish to see TYSA propagate the growth of young people, the growth of talents and abilities, and that to us was a great pledge, and that came to us as a promise. So it's based on that pledge that we are also now entrenching our footprints, that we will seek to grow better, the idea that he has. One of the best things that is currently happening is that Gichuki is also our neighbor. Where TYSA sits is also just a stone throw away from Gichuki's home. So as he exits, they usually say you can choose friends, but you cannot choose neighbors. We will always run back to him. We will always ask him to give us a shoulder to lean on.
Yeah.
and also ask him to keep watching the seed that he has planted. If that seed is growing into a mango instead of an orange, he can always make noise and say, you know, this is not the right way to do things. So basically, we are excited. We are very confident that we will continue to propagate the original vision. And my plea is to friends of TYSA and friends of Gichuki that even within his exit, they still have new friends in the new team that is coming in. So we are not losing anyone. The ship is not sinking. We are still on. So Gichuki's friends, including KBC, would continue supporting us even during his exit. So I feel that we are well covered.
Okay. So, gentlemen, I hate to cut this short because the conversation has been going on so well. I actually forgot that we are running out of time. So, just briefly, I'm sure we'll get to. We'll pick up from here. Obviously, this is not all the time that we have for you guys. Obviously, but now as we wind up this session, maybe what can you say to the parents out there who may want to, you know, get their children involved in, let's say, TYSA? Just briefly as we wind up.
Thank you, Munga. As we, we bring the curtains down, both for the program and also for Gichuki.
Yeah, of course. Good one.
I know I'll just respond to you shortly. But the most important part of it, as Peter was saying, one of really that I believe TYSA will be there for longer without Gichuki. You know, one of the things that me and my family did was really to donate land on which TYSA Stadium is built. And that is really nice. Part of, as a parent, when your child grows, you're able to provide some support.
True.
So that stadium where TYSA is really a facility that TYSA will live longer to use it. And once they have a home, then you are sure they will still thrive. And they will be able to do their programs from that particular place. So that's important. And the second part of the space that I look at into the years ahead is the fact that we have a global network. We have built a community of practitioners in the sports for development globally. I sit in the Street Football World Board in Berlin that I'm exiting to in December 3rd, and paving way for new generations and other people. That's a conversation we can pick for another day, because it's very exciting to see how we are shaping global policies on sports and youth development globally. And we have also in the last few years also been influencing policies in the sports for development. The Ministry of Education, we have been very closely working with them. I've been sitting in the technical working groups on the sports for development policies, and with the GIZ and other partners who have been supporting that process. So that's also anchored in the Ministry of Education. And that's the question you're asking, then how is that linked to learning? Because then that's the question of, we are making it possible through partners and everyone else that even in schools, that the child is able to acquire what he would have acquired at TYSA.
Yeah.
And that is really powerful when that happens, because we have thousands and thousands of children. And that's the same thing, conversation, that I live for TYSA, that TYSA is not going to work with Trans Nzoia, it's going to work with youth and young people without borders. And that means that all over the world, they'll be able to influence that. That's the task I've prepared the way for them to do that. And I think for me is to really appreciate KBC for this, giving us an opportunity to share, have a conversation, a candid one. And I look forward for more conversations. I told you I've not left the sector.
Yeah.
I've only left TYSA.
Exactly.
But in the sector of youth development, globally, I'm available, and I traverse the world just to inspire people with my story, and not only my story, but the story of change and the story of believing in young people.
Trust me, you have inspired us, really. So, Francis Gichuki, founder, and of course, he is living TYSA, the Transforming Youngsters of Africa. Peter Wechuli, and of course the other board members have to pave a way forward take over from there and make it even better than if they can, Gichuki said we should be, always positive, so, and make it better than, than what he did. Take his vision to, to another level. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us the time, and we sure do hope that the transition of power will be, for the best, really, and seamless. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for the viewers, that brings to an end our first session right here on Sports Check on KBC. But don't go too far. We're going to be taking a short break, but we're coming up next with the second session of the show. See you shortly.